Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the second shelf and to another recent reads on Sunday. I had a pretty good reading week, and I thought I'd share a couple of books with you that I finished last week and also talk maybe a little bit about the books that I'm currently reading. And the first book I want to talk to you about is Miriam Toews' new novel, Women Talking, which was released in Canada end of August. This was a buddy read with Canadian booktuber Sean, who lives in Japan. I will leave a link to his channel down below. Now, if you're following my channel, you might remember that I raved about Miriam Toews' previous book, All My Puny Sorrows, so I was really excited to read her new one. The book is based on a true event. In a Mennonite colony. Mennonites are a small group of Christian believers. A Mennonite colony in Bolivia. There was an incident. That's not the right word, but you know what I mean. That women were repeatedly raped during the night. First, the women were told that either they made it up or that they were visited by ghosts, satanic ghosts, to punish them for their sins. But it turned out that a group of men from the colony drugged the women during the night and raped them repeatedly. That's the premise that Miriam Toews took to write her book. And you have to know also that Miriam Toews herself is from a Mennonite background. And she writes in her book, she often writes about Mennonite beliefs and Mennonite culture. The book is just what the title says, Women Talking. It opens at the moment that the events have taken place and the 8 men responsible have been identified and have been taken to town, to jail. Most of the other men in the colony have left and in order to go to town and post bail for these men. And during that time that most of the men are gone, 8 women gather secretly as representatives of all the women in the colony in order to discuss what to do. The bishop of the colony told them that they have to forgive the men in order to, go to paradise when they died. So that's one option. But most of the women in the colony either want to stay and fight or want to leave. So basically, these two options, stay, fight, leave, are the two options that the women discussed during that secret meeting. There's one man left in the colony, August, who just recently returned. His parents were expelled from the colony years ago, and he has returned now. Why? And we will learn during the course of the book. And he is asked by one of the women to take minutes of their discussions. The women can't write, they can't read, they can't speak English, but August translates their talking points into English and writes them down. It's a fantastic book. The atmosphere of these discussions where we learn the horrors that had happened previously, but we also learn a lot about the individual women. One of the things that I really loved about the book was, besides the gorgeous writing, was that these women really came to life, these 8 women who sit there and discuss. We learn individual things about them. So they are not defined only, quote unquote, by them being victim of a horrendous crime. And I love that. I love the way they talked about what to do. I love the way we learn more about their background and learn more about August. I loved the ending. I thought it was beautiful. There was a little sluggishness somewhere in the middle, but that couldn't prevent me from rating this book 5 stars. So if this sounds interesting to you at all, please, I can highly recommend the book, and please try it out. The second book I finished last week is Daphne du Maurier's Jamaica Inn, first published in 1935. Now, I don't think Daphne du Maurier needs an introduction, and I'm reading this as part of a project started by Ange over at Beyond the Pages, She wanted to reread Daphne du Maurier's fiction, one book each month. This is the fourth one we are now reading. I love Daphne du Maurier's writing, so I thought I'd join in. This is a great project. I leave links to Andrew's channel and the Goodreads group where you can see the schedule. Maybe you want to join in for a book or two, or you want to join in for the whole project. It's really a lot of fun, and the discussions are very lively. Now, this book, like I said, was published in 1935. Daphne du Maurier was 29 years old at the time when she wrote it, and it's your typical Gothic tale. It's set in the 1820s-ish, in England, in Cornwall, in a quite desolate inn, Jamaica Inn, where Mary, a young woman, travels to live with her uncle and her aunt after her father died. Mary discovers her uncle is a violent brute. There's something very fishy going on in the inn, something with smuggling maybe. And the tale develops from there in your, like I said, in your typical Gothic fashion. I loved it. I really enjoyed the dark atmosphere of the landscape and the people. It's a bit over the top at times, but it was just a very entertaining, very fun read. The third book that I finished last week is a book that did the rounds on BookTube last year, and that is Emily Ruskovich, Idaho. It was first published in 2017. It's a debut novel, and I've seen a lot of praise on BookTube. I was a bit wary about the hype, so I didn't pick it up until this month. Emily Ruskovich is a young American author. She grew up in the mountains of Idaho. So the landscape that you will encounter in the book, which plays an important role, the mountains of Idaho, they are modeled on Emily Ruskovich's own childhood home. The book spans a time period for almost 50 years. It opens in 2004 with the main character Anne, who is married, has been married to Wade for 8 years. Wade is showing the signs of early dementia. He's just 50 years old. And we learn that Wade had been married before to Jenny, that he had 2 daughters, May and June. And then 8.5 years ago, something horrible happened. One daughter is dead, another daughter is missing, and his wife is in jail for life. We then learn during the course of the book what happened. We go back and forth in time. The book is told from various perspectives, Anne's perspective being the dominant one, but we see Wade's perspective, we see the 2 children, May and June, especially May's perspective, the younger one, and we also get Jenny's perspective, who is in jail, like I said, and slowly but surely the tale is developed and we learn what happened on this horrible August day 8 years ago. I absolutely loved the writing. I thought the book was extremely atmospheric. The landscape, I've never been to Idaho, but I could really see the mountains and the landscape and the woods and the beauty, but also it's scary at times, the way people lived there, the families, especially Wade and his first wife, and Wade and his second wife. So the whole atmosphere was fantastic, but I also really loved the story. There's one caution I want to give if you haven't read the book, like me, you're late to the party, could be. It's a mystery tale in a way, because a crime is at the center of the book. But if you expect a mystery to solve all the mysteries in the end, this book will certainly disappoint you, because it doesn't. We learn sort of what happened, but we do not get all the answers. And that's important because I read a lot of reviews especially on Goodreads, where people were extremely disappointed because they were expecting a mystery or a thriller, and they expected the mysteries to be solved. That's not the case. It's an open tale in a way. You have to figure out by yourself what you think happened. I loved it. Because the writing was beautiful and the story was fantastic. But don't expect your typical mystery where all the loose ends are tied up nicely in the end. So those were the 3 books that I finished last week, but I couldn't send you off with a 10-minute video, could I? So I'll talk a little bit about the 2 books that I'm currently reading. And the first one is this, The Black Prince by Iris Murdoch. This is a buddy read with Adam from Memento Mori. I will leave a link to his channel down below. He is a fantastic booktuber, and I'm sure you're already subscribed, but if you're not, you have to. Iris Murdoch, of course, is a very famous, or was a very famous, she's dead now, a writer born in Dublin. She was a philosopher as well. I came to her work through her nonfiction, her philosophical work, and only later discovered her novels. This one was published in 1973. We are now about halfway through, and it's the tale of a man, Bradley Pearson, who is a writer, although he hasn't published that much because he never finds the time to write. And when the book opens, he wants to leave London. He wants to go to a secluded place and work on his art, on his creativity. But of course, in typical Iris Murdoch fashion, that doesn't happen. He encounters his ex-wife, his sister, who just left her husband. There is this other guy, Francis, who just bothers him all the time. It's hilarious. The writing is fantastic. The dialogues are really hilarious. And we're now at the point that Bradley falls in love with a young woman. He's 58 and the woman is 20. And I'm sure that tragedy will come his way. So, like I said, so far we're really enjoying it. I'm looking forward to finishing this, and I will report back once I finished it. And the other book I just started yesterday, and that is Camilla Shamsi's Burnt Shadows, published in 2009. That's also a buddy read with Nashwa over at RecentReads. She is, like Adam, she is a fantastic booktuber. She's witty, she's funny. She hasn't posted recently, the last couple of weeks, because she was very busy. But please check out her channel and please subscribe. Now, if you're following my channel for any length of time, you will maybe remember how much I loved Camilla Shamsi's Home Fire, published last year, was on the Man Booker long list, and I was eager to pick up more of her work. And when Nashwa asked on YouTube whether anybody wanted to buddy read this, I sort of jumped right onto it. The book is set in 1945 in Nagasaki, Japan. It opens on the day that the second atom bomb is dropped. We just have read the first couple of pages, so I can't say much more than that. I always struggle a little bit with Camilla Shamsi's writing because she has these very long-winded sentences. And sometimes I have to read them 2 or 3 times in order to understand them. And she has this style of changing point of views mid-chapter. But I'm intrigued about the setting. We follow main character is a young Japanese woman who survives the attack, and the book will develop from there. I don't know how yet, but I will let you know once I've finished. So this was it for my recent reads on Sunday. 3 books I finished, 2 that I'm currently reading. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. As always, please talk to me down in the comments about the books that I've mentioned, or about your recent reads, and I will see you all soon in my next video. Bye bye.